Welcome to the Farm Medix lab. So today we're going to talk about immune response and somatic cell count. Somatic cell count of milk is basically measuring the white blood cells in milk, which is a level of immune response. Now what we know is that, just like people, not all cows have the same level of immune response when they encounter a pathogen. So if, for example, we're going to say, okay, we'll do a herd test, and from our cows below 150, we're not going to use a blanket dry cow, for example. Let's imagine now we've got a way that we could see somatic cell count by making our milk blue, and we've got our cow sitting at 140 somatic cell count, and our herd test sample sitting at 150, which is our standard, right? So we can say this cow is below this level, so we're happy not to give her blanket dry cow, for example. What we need to understand is that with a herd test sample for somatic cell count, not only do we not understand what the white blood cells in here are responding to, could be a major pathogen, could be a minor one, we actually don't know. All we know is we've got a very low immune response. What we have to understand is what sits behind this is that a cow has 4 quarters. So 4 quarters of somatic cells contributing to one sample, right? So quarter number 1, this is a high producing quarter, looks great. Quarter number 2 looks great. Quarter number 3 looks great. Quarter number 4, this one's not producing very much milk and also having quite a high immune response to something. And that's giving us an average, right, of our somatic cell count at 150. So we have to be very careful. So what they've done is some work around, Scott McDougall's done some great work, work's being done overseas. If we RMT the cow before we dry her off, we can see this quarter here, that if we just say, okay, 150 times 4, maybe this is 600, right? But because it's producing less milk, this quarter is likely to be 800 or even 1 million. And if we didn't pay attention to this, we would miss it. So by RMT testing the cow before dry off, we have an understanding of immune response. Still doesn't tell us what that pathogen is, but it tells us at least that there's a reason for the immune response. Which quarter has the immune response, right? Not necessarily what the pathogen is. What we also have to remember is that somatic cell count doesn't necessarily correlate at all to the pathogen. So we can have a cow with a quarter like this, or a cow with a low cell count, 20, for example, where nobody would even consider, and still carrying a major pathogen. So it's really important not to just consider somatic cell count, but to look at that herd profile, which we can do with our snapshot test to see if there is some perhaps subclinical pathogen in there, such as Staph aureus or contagious mastitis. In that respect, we would be doing things very differently, right? So why do we focus on somatic cell count so much? I think it's a historical thing. It's a little bit of a hangover. So at one time, because somatic cell count's easy to do, it's low cost, it's available everywhere. Like there's lots of machines we can do it in massive numbers. So all of the places that test milk, for example, where literally there's, I don't know how many million cows on this planet, but there's 6.5 million in New Zealand, so there's a fair amount of cows. So somatic cell count's always been available, but the need to move to that next level comes when you need to know what's going on, right? So somatic cell count is a very blunt tool. We know, for example, a cow with a high somatic cell count, we know something's wrong, but we have no idea what. All we know is the cow's having an immune response, so we can tell that she has exposure to a pathogen or has had. We don't know which of those two is even true. So maybe it's something that the cow's resolved, a little bit like a cough after a cold, or maybe it's something that's ongoing and she's going to be persistently a problem in our herd. So for these reasons, it is a blunt tool. One thing that's quite common for farmers to say to me is they're already testing. So maybe they're sending samples somewhere, maybe they're doing testing themselves. So what's different about what we do? And I think it's really unique that what we do is actually solve problems. So we actually troubleshoot and identify root causes to stop the situation, rather than just be yet another layer of cost to the farmer, be that testing, antibiotic use, all this stuff that goes around it. We're not there. So we actually write ourselves out of the will, if you like, which I think is quite unique. Once your problems are resolved, your problems are resolved, like they've gone. So you don't need us anymore, which I think is cool. Sit up. Sit up. Come up to the lab. See what's on the slab.